Statement of Allah Most High, O you who have believed, when you rise to perform prayer, wash your faces and your forearms to the elbows and wipe over your heads and wash your feet to the ankles. And if you are in a state of janabah, then purify yourselves. But if you are ill or on a journey, or one of you comes from the place of relieving himself, or you have contacted women and do not find water, then seek clean earth and wipe over your faces and hands with it. Allah does not intend to make difficulty for you, but He intends to purify you and complete His favor upon you that you may be grateful. And His statement, O you who have believed, do not approach prayer while you are intoxicated until you know what you are saying or in a state of janabah, except those passing through a place of prayer, until you have washed your whole body. And if you are ill or on a journey, or one of you comes from the place of relieving himself, or you have contacted women and find no water, then seek clean earth and wipe over your faces and your hands with it. Indeed, Allah is ever pardoning and forgiving. Sahih al-Bukhari 248. Narrated Aisha. Whenever the Prophet took a bath after janaba, he started by washing his hands and then performed ablution like that for the prayer. After that he would put his fingers in water and move the roots of his hair with them, and then pour 3 handfuls of water over his head and then pour water all over his body. Sahih al-Bukhari 249. Narrated Maymuna. The wife of the Prophet, Allah's Messenger, performed ablution like that for the prayer but did not wash his feet. He washed off the discharge from his private parts and then poured water over his body. He withdrew his feet from that place, the place where he took the bath, and then washed them. And that was his way of taking the bath of janaba. Sahih al-Bukhari 250. Narrated Aisha. The Prophet and I used to take a bath from a single pot called farak. Sahih al-Bukhari 251. Narrated Abu Salama. Aisha's brother and I went to Aisha and he asked her about the bath of the Prophet. She brought a pot containing about a saw of water and took a bath and poured it over her head, and at that time there was a screen between her and us. Sahih al-Bukhari 252. Narrated Abu Ja'far. While I and my father were with Jabir bin Abdullah, some people asked him about taking a bath. He replied, a saw of water is sufficient for you. A man said, a saw is not sufficient for me. Jabir said, a saw was sufficient for one who had more hair than you and was better than you, meaning the Prophet. And then Jabir put on his garment and led the prayer. Sahih al-Bukhari 253. Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet and Maymuna used to take a bath from a single pot. Sahih al-Bukhari 254. Narrated Jubair bin Mut'im. Allah's Messenger said, as for me, I pour water 3 times on my head. And he pointed with both his hands. Sahih al-Bukhari 255. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah. The Prophet used to pour water 3 times on his head. Sahih al-Bukhari 256. Narrated Abu Ja'far. Jabir bin Abdullah said to me, your cousin, Hassan bin Muhammad bin al-Hanafiya, came to me and asked about the bath of janaba. I replied, the Prophet uses to take 3 handfuls of water, pour them on his head and then pour more water over his body. Al-Hassan said to me, I am a hairy man. I replied, the Prophet had more hair than you. Sahih al-Bukhari 257. Narrated Maymuna. I placed water for the bath of the Prophet. He washed his hands twice or thrice and then poured water on his left hand and washed his private parts. He rubbed his hands over the earth and cleaned them, rinsed his mouth, washed his nose by putting water in it and blowing it out, washed his face and both forearms and then poured water over his body. Then he withdrew from that place and washed his feet.